There's a new kid in town. Lithium-ion rocks. Santiago. We're beginning a new series of new kids in town. At the Fast Markets Conference, I gave a presentation about financing a lithium project, and I basically said that you want to be Wodgina. You want to be Kidman. That is, advance a hard rock project or any project, but those value creation has been most prominent in hard rock in the short term. But it is possible to, despite the fact that it may take 12 years from beginning to production, as Albemarle's famous timeline chart shows, Wodgina and Kidman show that you can create significant value in 2 to 4 years, especially in the case of Kidman. Just imagine being a shareholder in Kidman and just getting cash, right? There's an outcome at 20 times your money in 4 years. About a 500 million market cap, for people who got there quite early. So anyhow, in the Fast Markets presentation, where I basically augmented my last lithium bull, which was entitled Material Girl Like a Virgin, I was suggesting the Lithium 3.0 projects would perhaps get better, their lessons learned from capital structures that have been in place. I compared in the brine space, for example, the very strong capital structure of Orocobre and the significantly worse capital structure of Lithium Americas from the perspective of Lithium Americas and Orocobre. As I've said before, the capital structure of Lithium Americas looks good from Ganfeng's perspective. But Lithium Power is a new kid in town with a clean slate, and a big takeaway from my first ever trip to Santiago a week, is that Chile is definitely open for business. It has a good political backdrop. As we visited SQM and Albemarle, we passed by, Escondida, a giant copper mine. I got a much greater appreciation of the long-term vision of China to have targeted Chile as a critical country, for their needs, both copper and lithium. I'm not so sure that the average citizen in Chile is happy about that. Had some discourse about that with some prominent, locals of various generations. Santiago is a gorgeous city. I went on this great hike with Vivas Kumar, formerly of Tesla, now of Benchmark, Anthony C. of Galaxy, the guys from Energy X, and the LME, and Evan of Traxxas and the University of Michigan, and more millennials, Alejandro Hess and Ernie Ortiz. No, it's a great day, a great hike in the Andes. What a beautiful city. Leaving Santiago feeling upbeat that I would like to visit it again, and in particular to further examine Lithium Power International, the subject of today's podcast. For Jane and George battery packs out there who are looking at Lithium Power, the ticker symbol on the ASX is LPI. Trades on the OTC, ticker symbol LTHHF. The company currently has about 262 million shares outstanding. It's a 25-cent stock in Australia, which equates to about a US 50 million market cap. They have about 15 million US in the bank and some options which are in the money, which if converted would bring, another $8 to $10 million. So reasonably well capitalized, considering they are at a DFS level on their flagship Maricunga project, and that 50 million compares to a number of other projects we've seen in Argentina with meaningfully higher market caps, and there's also Western Australia exploration, one could argue you get for free, similar to the Albemarle freeboot argument of a podcast or two ago. Welcome to Lithium-ion Rocks. It is Monday, the 10th of June. I'm sitting here on the 22nd floor of the world headquarters of Pinera Salar Blanca, which is the operating company for the Maricunga brine development project in Chile. We're about to attend the Fast Markets 11th annual lithium conference. I had the opportunity to have a nice dinner with the very significant entourage that Lithium Power has here as a gold sponsor for this conference. We are in Chile. Everybody knows SQM and Tianqi and Albemarle. Both Tianqi and SQM have very significant presence here. In the development brine sphere, Argentina has had a lot of focus over the last kind of couple of years, but quietly $50 million has been spent by LPI and its predecessor company, Li3, to advance Maricunga to what is now a definitive feasibility study that they put out in January. We're going to talk a bit in detail about that. I'm also excited to be proximate and in the same company with my partner and co-host, Rodney Hooper. We have the four members of Lithium Power and Pinera Salar Blanca with us, including Cristobal Garcia Huidobro, the CEO of Lithium Power and of Pinera Salar Blanca. We have David Hannon, who is the chairman of LPI. We have Ricky Fertig, who is the chairman of Pinera Salar Blanca, as well as a director of LPI, and also Richard Crookes, who is my first connection to Lithium Power, having left a very important private equity firm, EMR, after a storied career at Macquarie as a banker. Anyhow, I've known Richard for quite some time, and Rodney has known Ricky Fertig, one of the few other South Africans in the lithium space.
Hi, Ricky. Good to see you again. What I thought we'd first cover is just some of the background and the history of LPI and where you've got to now, and the importance of having a strong local partner in Chile.
Well, we found the asset some 3 years ago and literally came here. I came here a couple of weeks after that to meet Martin Border, who had control over the Maricunga at that stage, or that section of the Maricunga that we now control. We've created an exceptionally good relationship with Martin over the years, to the point where he's a personal friend of mine now. He is also a major shareholder within LPI and owns a third of the MSB itself. And I think what is important about the relationship is that Martin and Cristobal sit on LPI's board, and we sit on MSB's board. So between our partner and ourselves, we control 83% of the Maricunga, or Pinera Salar Blanca. I think what's important to understand about Martin, he's old family Chile. His father set up and ultimately sold Scotiabank, which is now Scotiabank, literally Chile. He's a major player in the salmon market around the world. I think, to be fair, I think Martin's business is now the third largest or fourth largest salmon producer in the world, and Martin's been highly thought of in Chile and greatly respected.
David, why don't you describe how you got involved in here, and perhaps you could speak a little bit on behalf of Russell, who's not here, just from the experience that you and Russell bring to taking a company from this size to, in Atlas's case, I think you left when it was over a $3 billion market cap company.
In terms of LPI, look, the non-executive team, Russell Barwick has a wonderful history in international companies and multi-billion-dollar gold companies, Gold Corp. a terrific credentialed fellow. He brings a wealth of experience on the mining engineering side and comes to Chile regularly and works with Cristobal Garcia closely in terms of guiding the team there. Myself, I had some iron ore experience. I was with Atlas Iron for 10 or 11 years there, previous chairman, and that's the non-executive team. And we certainly, along with Ricky Fertig, we certainly welcome the team that we have assembled. You've met them all in this podcast earlier. It really represents LPI now as a financially sound company.
And Cristobal, if you could just give us an update and a sort of an overview for the listeners about the project itself, you know, the tonnage, the cost, etc., and the economic viability.
$563 million in capex, expected annual production of 20,000 tons LCE, less than $4,000 per ton of cash cost, an NPV of around $1 billion after tax, IRR of around 30%. It's, as of today, it's one of the most or the biggest ones in South America.
Unlike Albemarle and SQM, MSB actually owns its land on the Salar. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Something very important. We are the owners of our mining concessions, so basically we are subject to a completely different scheme of royalties, which are much lower. Our effective rate at the end of the day, it's going to be not higher than 7%.
How welcoming has the government been? How keen they are on lithium development in Chile?
We do have a very strict regulation here in terms of environmental regulation here in Chile. It's a very good thing. If you have the ability to develop the project since the beginning in a very good way, you know, you're not going to have any kind of issue. Chile is a country with a very, very high stability, which at the end of the day is what you look for when you are, you know, executing a very long-term investment like a mining, developing a mining project. The current administration of President Pinera has been doing an amazing job in terms of reactivating the economy, supporting private companies. This is one of the most important projects. They want to see these happenings. Conditions today are probably the best ever here in Chile.
And just staying on that thematic, Cristobal, how has the EIA interaction and feedback been to date?
We submitted our EIA by September last year, 2018. An environmental approval process here in Chile can take between 12 to 18 or 24 months. We already are on the final stage of that evaluation process. We just received our second consolidated observations report, and we are expecting to submit our answers by the end of July. And after that, it's a period of resolution for the authorities, and we are expecting to have a positive resolution before year-end. It's important to remark that MSB already have his nuclear commission permit, which is very important here in Chile in order to be able to export lithium products from the country. On the CO side, we have been working with the government for the last almost 12 months now. We are very close to finalize the structure that to maximize the benefit for all the players here, the state and MSB. MSB is the only project which is on a feasibility stage now. The EPC contractors proposing to go through an optimization process which will decrease our capex on around 7 to 8%, which is a lot of money. It's like $50 million. They have been proposing some fixed price, maximum price guaranteed on the contracts, which is something very good because it basically eliminates this uncertainty of what happens if your costs goes up.
In terms of a strategic partner for MSB, what would the ideal partner look like, and at what level, you know, holdco versus project level would make sense for you?
We're obviously commencing conversations with all financing parties, including banks, offtake partners, equity providers and strategic partners. So we are open to all structures. I think in terms of our ideal structuring, we'd like to see a strategic partner come in at whole, at operating company level, where they would invest at some premium to our current market cap, so less dilutive to current LPI shareholders. We obviously commencing those conversations, and I think the potential preferred partner would bring finance and offtake, which we don't have. I think our operating company here, MSB, has strong technical capability. There's obviously the best brine capability in South America, so we have access to that. So I don't think a strategic partner would necessarily need to bring us that sort of operating expertise, but certainly a large equity check and some offtake connections would be ideal. In terms of debt, we're not seeing the commercial banks out of Australia yet financing hard rock projects. In Chile, there's a very sophisticated banking system, but generally sort of less advanced in terms of mining project finance. We have had some conversations, obviously, with the local banks, and they're interested. But in terms of securing a $200 million debt check, I think it's probably going to be a combination of local Chilean banks potentially sort of pre-financing the VAT component of our capital that gets returned relatively early after first production, that $70 million piece. Then, of course, you can tap the ECA markets if they're potentially available in conjunction with external EPC providers. If we have sort of an Australian, Canadian sort of connection with our engineering groups, then that potentially comes with some ECA finance. So we're investigating all of those options, and I think we'll be very successful in attracting that.
The Chilean government seems very, very interested in lithium development, and it's not just lithium, but it's just this broader green, sustainable, economy. They also have a sophistication. Ricky, we were talking last night about 17 million people in this country. There's 44 million in Argentina. The exports of Chile for a much smaller country are significantly higher than they are in Argentina. And then those exports are, copper is number one. I think salmon is number two. And then even wine. People talk about, Malbec wine as being, something fantastic. But I was looking at the statistics. I mean, your exports are like 3 or 4 times greater in Chile than in Argentina. But more importantly, relevant to that is that there is a mining infrastructure in this country that has been developed over many, many, many years, whereas in Argentina, the exports are primarily, agriculture. It's beef, it's soybeans. It's like I was surprised at how low mining was as a percentage of economic activity in Argentina. You're closer to the port, and just the infrastructure availability here relative to other Argentine projects, and LPI does have an Argentine project.
Look, our project is in the right postcode. I mean, we're in Region 3 of Chile. There are existing base metal and precious metal projects in the area. You fly to Copiapó, you're at an elevation of less than 1,000 meters, and within 3 hours you're up at 4,000 meters because the infrastructure already exists. We've got great road access, already power, water installed close to site, and those are the benefits of being in a country that has a long history of mining development. So we're blessed with that infrastructure, and we will take advantage of it for sure. I think also the benefits of being in Region 3 compared to Region 2, where the Atacama projects are, is that the government is very keen to support the development of a new project in Region 3. It's one of the key projects that they would like to see approved and advanced during this current term of this administration. So we're getting fantastic support, as Cristobal has previously said. So all in all, the benefits of being in Chile is you have infrastructure, mining culture, capability, sort of a domain experience, if you like, in being able to build projects. And so, we'll benefit from all of that.
I think the other thing is skills, to be frank. I mean, we talk about a mining country with skills, which Argentina has to train. The reality is you've got the Atacama. We have the skills in lithium sitting down the road, and that gives us the opportunity to bring those into our project as well. And more than that, you talk about a mining town with all of the equipment, spares, et cetera, that you require a couple of hours down the road, whereas not quite sure how you go about doing that in Argentina, unless, of course, you're coming over the border to do that.
In Chile, you have really two salars. One is Atacama, and the other one it's Maricunga, because those are the only two that have grades over 1,000 ppms. We are not reinventing the wheel here. We don't want to take any kind of risk in terms of our production process, so we are using traditional production processes, using evaporation ponds, and then go straight to our production plant. However, we do have the opportunity to make things a little bit more efficient. We introduce a mechanical evaporation also in part of our process, which is something very interesting because it's not a new technology. We are just heating and cooling things here, but it is letting us to reduce our evaporation ponds times in about, 40% more or less. We have been able to work with GA Meso, the German company, which is probably one of the main suppliers on the lithium industry, and this for the last 2.5 years, preparing this process. We operated our evaporation ponds pilots for almost 1.5 years. And so far, we have been able to produce for the last 6 months, at a lab scale, lithium carbonate with more than 99.4% of purity after the loss of ignition, which at the end of the day is battery grade. GA feels so comfortable also on their design of the production process that they are guaranteeing these results. This is a mining company. And when you have been developing projects, sometimes people take things as granted, some things that are not that easy, like, for example, building a transmission line. Building a transmission line of 100 kilometers needs all the permits, all the rights of path of the owners of those superficial lands, or building a road. Those are things that, even though from an engineering point of view can be easy today, are things that can take a very long time. Okay, so those things are things that we do have already working and operating in Maricunga, and we already received all the authorizations from the government to be able to use that infrastructure. And also, we secured our water supply, months ago, which is something very good, even though this is not a process. Lithium production is not a process that uses a lot of fresh water. We have been working with the local indigenous communities there in Maricunga for the last 3 years now. And we have established a very, very strong relationship between the company and them. They are participating on what are going to be the future benefits of this project through part of a royalty, which is less than 1%, but it's for them. It will be effective through all the mine life of these projects. So, in present value, it's more than $20 million, which is going to be probably the major contribution of a private company in Chile for indigenous communities. And probably it's showing the way in which the next Chilean projects will need to be developed, which is basically, sharing part of the benefits that are being generated with the local communities on the areas that the projects are located.
There's been a lot of interest lately, with Kidman being taken over by Wesfarmers. A lot of talk in Australia, like what's next. So exploration companies like Liontown and a few others are attracting interest. None of that interest has yet been reflected in LPI stock, but you do have you're about to be drilling in kind of elephant country next to Wodgina and Pilgangoora assets. So you just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, thanks, Howard. I think our hard rock lithium development projects are the hidden gem in our company. We're in the fortunate position, as you mentioned earlier, that we have $17 million in cash, which not only takes the pressure off us in terms of our immediate sort of work programs and the financing for for the Maricunga, but it's allowed us to step up our activity in WA. So we've established a strong geological team now in a new, larger office in Perth, and we're advancing our Taba Taba and Strelly and Pilgangora projects now this year quite actively. So they're 100% owned projects. Taba Taba, we have a 20-kilometre strike of highly prospective greenstone units northwest of FMG's drilling area. So we're very excited about that, where we have some strong geochemical anomalies which provide indicators for productive LCT, lithium pegmatites. Development program there will include 4,000 meters of drilling that we're starting later this month, and we have a 4.3 kilometer zone of elevated lithium that we're targeting for that sort of major drill program. So that's Strelly and Taba Taba. At Pilgangora, we're just immediately west of Altura and Pilbara Minerals mines, and we are pretty excited there that we have some very prospective pegmatites that we've identified, and we're targeting some continued drilling on those properties this year. So those two hard rock lithium productive areas are a key focus for our team in WA this year.
Actually, while you're on that, I have two questions that came to mind. One was that in the presentation, you see Pilgangora, and okay, that's great. And then also in the presentation, you see something that says Greenbushes, right? And like Greenbushes is the highest grade mine in the world. So like, so talk about that a bit as well. And I'm curious, as a practiced and experienced person in Australia, the entry, I don't know Wesfarmers very well, but as a blue chip corporate in Australia, how do you interpret this move into lithium?
Our Greenbushes projects are part of the original assets that LPI listed on, so they're very important assets along with the Pilbara projects there. However, our interest was diverted, rightly so, to the Maricunga over the last 2 to 3 years to advance that project to where it is today. So we're now in an opportunity to refocus on our WA projects. Greenbushes is, it's in a fantastic address. I mean, it's a little less easy access than the Pilbara in terms of competing land uses. So we do have to go through environmental and forestry clearances in order to sort of access that. But we're very excited about the potential opportunity on the greenstone tenements, which are, as you say, close to the Greenbushes mines, which is why we're in that address. In terms of Wesfarmers, I'm very familiar with that company. I mean, they're a major diversified corporate in Australia, and I was aware from some sort of connections I have through my previous corporate life of their interest in the lithium and rare earth sectors, and they've certainly got an interest in developing a chemical business south of Perth, and clearly their corporate activity, or their attempted corporate activity in terms of rare earths, and their success in securing a very interesting producing asset in WA is a real vote of confidence in the sector for a global corporate like Wesfarmers to really be pushing into lithium is a real sign that they see some massive strength in not only the mining but the downstream chemical value add in terms of producing cathode and other products in Perth, in WA.
So I was thinking, because I know very little about Wesfarmers, but I took the opportunity. They came into the picture. I looked up their annual report. And they seem a very, very Australian kind of company. Like maybe they made acquisitions. They're in New Zealand or they're in UK, but this is like the whole Lithium Valley thematic, and they exited coal, from a sustainability point of view. But plus they have chemical expertise like in Kwinana. So they really, from a partnership perspective with SQM. Right, they look very much like they could be equal partners. They're not just going to be like letting SQM kind of run everything there. They're going to have kind of some input, is my opinion. Do you agree with that?
I agree 100%. And SQM would be absolutely delighted to have Wesfarmers as a partner. I mean, the balance sheet strength really is huge for them to be able to sort of advance those Kidman assets further than perhaps the previous owners might have been able to do.
Do you think, though, that this is a kind of Australian company investing in Australia, or they're like, we like lithium, maybe we're going to come to Maricunga, right? Or, some have postulated, that maybe they'll buy Livent or something like that. As an Australian company, that seems a little far afield to kind of go to emerging market, South America, but I don't know them. What do you think?
Look, I doubt that, to be honest. I think their key focus is to be in the sector. They've obviously carefully targeted SQM as a partner. I think that gets them up the learning curve in terms of the technology as a miner and a producer. But of course, there could be future opportunities for those two companies to work in concert for further activity. But that's not for me to comment on, really.
Okay, thank you very much, all here, and we will, take some good pictures. All of these guests have received their Lithium-ion Rocks T-shirt, and we're now going to take a photo overlooking the Andes. In Lithium-ion Rocks, Lithium-ion Bull, and through our respective LinkedIn and Twitter posts, Rodney and I may share with our audience some rationale for a stock for which we have conviction, to own or not to own. If you agree or disagree with and act on or against the rationale of anything said or written in this or any other Lithium-ion Rocks or Lithium-ion Bull, that's your free choice. But to be clear, what you are listening to or reading is not investment advice and may not be unbiased. It should not be construed as an investment recommendation to buy or sell any security. Rodney and I are not registered investment advisors nor broker-dealers. Please visit libull.com for further disclaimers.